So here's the thing. You know that a show is good if you get emotionally invested and teary-eyed in the first episode. Before we get started, I want to say a quick hello and welcome all. This is Eclectic Kelpi, where we dive into the treasure trove of fantastical media. And if you want to go on a quest of self-discovery and healing, then connect with that subscribe button to join us on all of our adventures. Quick heads up, this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't finished watching Frieren, come back once you're all done. Now with all that, let's dive into the episode. Quick synopsis as a refresher. Frieren Beyond Journey's End is a story about an elven mage who's over 1,000 years old and is going on a journey to discover what happens after the epic quest has finished and the heroes start becoming more myth than person. This story takes place 80 years after Frieren and her companions have spent 10 long years to defeat the Demon King, and they have successfully completed their mission. And by this time, half of her companions have passed away. The elven mage then retraces her adventure from the 10-year-long journey with her friends to be able to reconnect to those that she's lost. This show is a beautiful commentary on the meaning of life and how our actions affect the world. It also deploys an extreme contrast of life and how much time we have, while also being optimistic around using the time that we have to prioritize our loved ones, and what is the cost when we leave things unsaid or unacted on. At the very beginning, the end of episode 1, we are at Himmel's funeral, and Frieren is experiencing a lot of sadness, loss, and grief, and she starts to think about how this has impacted her so greatly, and it's solidified that the loss of her friend and how short life is compared to how during her adventures she wasn't processing what was happening in terms of time passing and in terms of the impact that these people were having on her in such a longevity capacity, in such a long-lasting capacity. But she really feels it, and that's what prompts her going on a mission to retrace her steps and hopefully find heaven. We're so excited for season 2, but hopefully be able to talk to Himmel and Heiter now as well, and just say the things that she didn't get to say. And it's really interesting to see that loss and grieving process from the perspective of somebody who has lived for over 1,000 years, and how different that mentality is around processing loss, but also anticipating loss, because she is very flippant about how she knows that all of the people around her are going to die way sooner than she is, but then when it actually happens, it hits very hard. And so it's quite beautiful seeing how she relearns and changes her understanding around what it means to lose people and how to prioritize them while they're in front of her, and to get to know them, because even though their lives are shorter than hers, they are still meaningful, and she finds that there's so much impact, and the loss makes more impact, and she sees that not only in her own emotions, but also in the world around her. Even tiny actions have profound impact on the people that they've helped throughout their journey. It's also a great commentary on self-reflection and understanding that things that we don't necessarily think are going to have a long-lasting impact on us actually have the most impact. One of my favorite quotes in this season was when Frieren is talking to Eisen, and she's reflecting on how that 10 years was about 1/10 of her life that she will live and has lived. And then Eisen responds like, well, guess that 10 years really had a lot of impact. And it just, you know, it's a refresher to the audience that we do need to prioritize being present in the moment and experiencing things as fully and completely as we can, because our memories are what we take along with us. That is what is making our stories. That's what's going to matter at the end of the day when everything else is gone. Another amazing point that I found that this show was making was the Frieren sort of has this like, oh, what is it going to matter? How is it going to help? What's the, like, she's a little bit of a pessimist with certain things, but then we see that all these years later, the people that they helped, especially like the little kids that are now like in their 80s in the show, and she's going back to all these towns, and we can see that even little acts of kindness make a huge difference. And it wasn't just about the doing things to be memorable or taking credit for good deeds. Another point that I think the show makes fantastically, phenomenally, is life's mortality and the importance of impact despite potential not remembrance. We see Frieren's original party doing good deeds and taking time out of their busy lives going and trying to kill the Demon King, which is arguably a more important task. It's so beautifully realistic. It's like optimistic futility is the mentality of a lot of these characters, it feels like, because they're kind of, you know, when someone is like, oh, that's foolish to go and stop and help somebody pick up their groceries that they like dropped on the side of the road accidentally, and you're taking your time to go and do something that feels like, oh, that's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things, but then it does, and it has impact, and it brings joy. And yeah, despite them getting called foolish, they still are like, yeah, I know, yeah, it might be foolish, but it still made people happy, and therefore it's still important, and it's still worthy of doing that. It's not about grand gestures. Yes, it is about, of course, destroying the Demon King and saving the world as a whole, but also about having real personal connections and the importance of personal connections over having grand accomplishments and being remembered as successful. It's much more about interpersonal connection rather than being a superiority thing, which I think is just a beautifully well-written point that I think we could all internalize a little bit better nowadays. It's also really interesting to see the difference in terms of Frieren versus literally everybody else, is that she thinks that she can take 10 years to go and do something like, oh, she wants to go and research a flower, and she's talking with Fern, and she's like, oh yeah, it's okay, we'll spend like 10 years here, it's fine. And Fern is like, no, we got like a week, like we don't have time, because it's the duality of how much time you actually have. And because Frieren has literally all the time in the world, it doesn't matter for her, but for everyone else around her, it's a huge deal because they don't have 1,000 years to accomplish everything. So it kind of forces her to find moments more precious and to appreciate moments rather than not really caring, not really having drive to continue moving forward. And so it's an interesting insight into also, like, for people, is what drives us forward is this clock of like, we only have this much time in this world, how are we going to best utilize it? It's interesting to see that like play with having a character who has literally no time limit and how to make her feel like something's important. And kind of also going back to like finding meaning in choices. Another quote that I loved, an interaction that I loved with Frieren, and there was an old man who was like celebrating the heroes, and they were in this village in the north, and she was having this conversation, and they were doing this like big festival of like, oh, we have to celebrate the heroes because we want to make sure that we're remembering what they did for us. Yes, it's like 80 years later and the Demon King's gone and we're in an unprecedented age of peace and everything's great, but we still have to remember the sacrifices that happened, and we still have to appreciate what was done for us. And she's like, interesting, are you gonna remember this in 100 years? And he says, absolutely, certainly we will. She's like, okay, but what about 1,000? And he says, it's a little bit harder to gauge if that's gonna actually happen. And so she's like, yeah, so is it actually worth it? But I think that that's like, again, it just reestablishes so much throughout the show, is it doesn't have to be remembered. It just has to be a good thing that somebody put out into the world. And I think that that's really beautiful. We also can see this as an example of the good deeds still having impact in terms of what the like physical impact on the world has been, and remembrance in terms of, we know long ago that there was something that this person did to save the world but nobody remembers, is when they meet Croft in the cabin in the mountain when they're trying to not freeze to death in the winter, and he's like, I was also once a grand hero. I saved the world. I had a buddy. We did that. That was great times. but nobody remembered him except they do find a village who has a statue of him and his partner, but nobody remembers their names. And it just kind of their legend has been lost, but they still have left a positive mark. So ultimately that is what this story is everything matters, and it also doesn't matter, but in the best way. You can choose to do things to leave a positive impact just for the sake of leaving a positive impact and having others remember it, but not in an egotistical way, but just in a that was really kind and really wonderful way. And it doesn't have to be grand. It's the ripple effect of good deeds, and we see it with the villagers and the appreciation and the passing it forward kind of thing. You know, everybody is trying to do a little bit better, and it makes the world a better place. And then lastly, I just want to comment on the art. The actual show itself is so beautiful. I obviously am obsessed with fantasy genre, so anything fantasy is going to be my thing, but just particularly with this anime, it was very beautiful. Yeah, the beauty was reflected in the story and also in the art, so it was incredible to watch. I'm very excited for season 2. I think it's going to be fantastic. The final takeaway thing that I got from this show was just leave the world a little bit of a better place than you found it. And don't worry about being remembered. It's all just passing it forward and trying to be kind, and that's gonna make you happy and others happy. And also prioritize your friendships. I know we all get lost in this like, oh, I'm so busy cycle, but you know, time is precious, and choose how you spend it wisely, and be with your loved ones. Have the connections. And those were just some of my thoughts and opinions on Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Let me know how intensely the existentialism hit you down in the comments below. I know that I definitely had some ponderance of my existence while watching, but in, like, again, the best positive way. So, but yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. Everything with love, and we'll see you next time in the Treasure Trove. Bye!